We are in Genesis chapter number 22. Let me start my timer. All right, I'm going 35 minutes today because I got extra slides. 35 minutes today, okay? Genesis chapter number 22 says this. After these things, God tested who? Abraham. And he said to him, Abraham, here am I. He said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering, as one of the mountains which I will tell you. So Abraham rose up early in the morning. If you got a physical Bible, underline early. If you got a digital one, highlight early in the morning. And he saddled his donkey, and he took 2 of his young men with him. And he said to Isaac, and he cut the wood, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place which God told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. Then Abraham said to the young man, stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship, and we will come again to you. Today, I'm going to preach a message called Worship equals sacrifice, or sacrifice equals worship. I don't remember, but in a second you'll see the slide and you'll be able to know which one it is. But in the meantime, let's pray. God, we love you today. It's our love for you that brought us out of our homes this morning to receive from you and to be encouraged by your presence and your people. Lord, we know you're everywhere, but we're gathering together among your people to give you great praise. Help us to worship you in the way that you deserve, to honor you in the way that you deserve, not only in this moment, but for the rest of our days. Everybody who agrees with that says in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, now I need you to talk back to me today, okay? Look at one of your neighbors and say, neighbor, please talk back today. Say, other neighbor, you were not my first choice, but please talk back today. Okay, y'all ready? Who is that? Come on, somebody. This is, there we go, Kobe Bean Bryant, the Black Mamba, okay? He's many things to many people, but let me tell you something. This young man was the epitome of sacrifice. I remember hearing a story, and if you're a Kobe fan, okay, I know Impoli's back there so happy. Like, this is my Sunday, come on! If you're a Kobe fan, there's tons of Kobe stories, tons. But there is one that really sticks out to me, and this was the U.S. Olympic team would get up and practice at 6 a.m. And as a matter of fact, I think they were supposed to practice at 7, but they said, you know what, we're going to take it a step further because we committed. So they said, we're going to get here at 6. So they all get to the gym at 6. They open up the door and see Kobe Bryant in the gym, full sweat mode, right? Which means he had been working out, and he had been working out for a while. Right? What am I trying to communicate to you? That all of us know about sacrifice. Either you sacrifice for your kids, or you sacrifice for your job, or you sacrifice for your physical health, or you sacrifice for your mental health. Sacrifice is a universal thing that we do. You sacrifice your time, right? You go to work and you say, I'm going to give you 40 hours a week, and in exchange for me giving you 40 hours a week, what are you going to give me? Money, okay? You're going to give me money. You're going to give me benefits, okay? You're going to do all this stuff for me. So sacrifice is a universal thing that we all do, but even more so when it is a spiritual act. When we sacrifice to God, we learn something unique about ourselves, but also we learn something unique about God. Okay, so here it is. Sacrifice equals worship, not worship equals sacrifice. I had it wrong. So, in Bible study on Tuesday, if you haven't joined us, I want to encourage you to join us. It's a great time. But I want us to have a working definition of what worship is. Because some of us were raised to believe that worship is just when you sing slow songs. No, that's called a slow jam, okay? You can get that from Usher, right? But worship has nothing to do with music. Worship, you can worship with music, but you do not need music to worship, okay? This is the working definition that we have for the word worship, okay? Worship is what? Valuing or a treasuring of God. Where? Above. What's this word right there? All things. In other words, saying not only with your words, but with your posture that, Lord, you come first in my life. And before I consult the opinion of the people I love, I'm going to consult the one I love first. Before I decide what I'm going to do based on what the bank account says, I'm going to ask the one who owns the cattle upon 1,000 hills. The Bible says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Before God says, I know you worship me when you come to me first. When I'm the first call you make. When I'm the first opinion that you see. When I am the one that you come to and you say, before I go out here, I don't want to be by myself, so I want to make sure that I am out here with God. Okay, so if you got saved around the 80s, 90s, maybe even the 70s. Okay, I wasn't born in the 70s, but anyways. If you got saved around those times, there were like 2 verses, okay, that you learned as soon as you came into church. Okay, first one is John 3:16, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. But there's another one that I believe, I heard it for the majority of my life, okay? And if you are a believer and became a believer around that time, maybe you heard it too, okay? It's this one right here, right? It says, this is the King James Version because this is how I was taught it. So this was the easiest way for me to remember, okay? This is one of the first verses that they made, I shouldn't say made, forgive me, Lord, encouraged me to learn, okay? And what does it say? I beseech you, okay? That's how you know it's the King James Version. You're like, what is that? Google it later. I don't know. No, it means to ask or to request. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by what? The mercies of God, that you do what? Present your bodies a what? Now, hold on a second. Normally, a sacrifice, especially in the story of Abraham, is a burnt offering. So that means in order for it to be a sacrifice, normally what has to happen to it? It's got to die, right? But he says, I'm not asking you to do this. I'm asking you to do it in a living way. He says, I'm asking you to present your body a living sacrifice. What else does he say? Holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Or some versions say, which is your reasonable act of worship. So this leads me to my first point. Write it down, okay? Take a note, put it in there somewhere. This is the first point I got for you today. It says this right here. Sacrifice is a part of the DNA of some believers. All believers. Most believers. All believers. Okay? In other words, when you and I are walking with God, sacrifice, I want to say is natural, but sacrifice is a part of it. People from a long, long time, when you start talking about people who found faith and they didn't have little money or they didn't have many resources, or they've been sacrificing a long time, because we all know that there's no way, don't leave me out here by myself, somebody say amen after I say this, there's no way that you can love something and not give something to it. Amen. Right? Some of y'all still couldn't say amen because you're mad because you didn't get nothing on Valentine's Day. You're like, that's my husband. How he didn't give me nothing right? Well, you know, that's a different kind of thing. But anyways, the truth of the matter is sacrifice is a part of the DNA of believers. There's something in you that says, Lord, I have to offer something to you. Right? I just can't. Let me help us today. God is the Almighty God, and we are his servants, which means that we owe him, not that he owes us. Y'all heard them Dollar Tree amens in here. Because the Americanized version of Christianity says that if I come to church, and if I give my offering, and if I'm faithful, and if I'm nice to people, that God owes me a blessing. Okay? I know this might be your last Sunday, but I gotta say it anyway. God does not owe us anything, but we owe him everything. God has done for us what no one else has done. And because when we come into the body of Christ, we become a son and a daughter of God. We have a spiritual blood transfusion, and part of what's in his DNA gets in our DNA. So we, as Christians, cannot say that we love God and live a selfish life. We cannot say we love God and he's awesome and he's amazing, and every time there is a need in the people of our lives or in our community, we shut our mouths and we remain silent. You can't serve God, Jesus Christ Almighty, and be silent when it comes to injustice. You cannot serve the man named Jesus and see people being done wrong and you act like you don't see it. Because there is something on the inside of you that says, I have to speak up because wrong is wrong and right is right. And God fought not only for, God loves not only people who are middle class, not only people who are making the Fortune 500 money, but he loves the lowest of the low. Matter of fact, when Jesus got mad, next time when you look in the Bible, look through Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, and look what made Jesus mad. Right. Look at it. It was when people were disrespecting the least in society. It was when people were looking over people because they didn't have any money that they thought they didn't have a soul. They thought because they couldn't do anything for people financially, Jesus began to get mad and he called people vipers. He said you got the game twisted, okay? Because I'm getting away from my point here. But the point is that sacrifice is a part of the DNA of all believers. So ask yourself, when was the last time that I did a selfless act? Now, mind you, I don't mean something that you gave up because you knew you were going to get something in return. I mean as an offering unto God. Anybody know who this is? Star Wars fans in here? Okay, I forgot his name because I did this research just to... Who said it? Mace Windu. Come on, Mace Windu. Thank you. You just helped my sermon right now. Come on, Mace Windu. And Mace Windu, he's really dark right now, so you can't see him. So you must be a real fan. Okay, I just see a dark blob and then a purple name right here. Okay, some of y'all was like, I don't know, what is this, a clip from Purple Rain? I don't know what it is. This is Mace Windu. And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of Mace Windu's abilities is that he has the ability to see people's weaknesses, right? He has the ability, before he attacks, he has the ability to see the gaps in people's weakness. I believe it's called shadow something. Sarah, like, I don't know that. Okay, I can't know it all. You preaching, I mean, stop looking at me, all right? You should have prepared. But the truth of the matter is, he can see people's weaknesses. But he uses the weakness to attack. But here's what God uses. Here's why I brought this up. Because God takes our weak areas and he fills them with strength. But here's the thing. You cannot get strength from God if you act like you're already strong. Service is over, okay? That's the whole message right there. You cannot receive strength from God if you act like you already have everything it takes. I know your mama made you a strong man, but there's some strength your mama could not give you. I know you come from a long line of strong women, but there are some things that the women in your bloodline could not give you, because there are some demons walking around in this earth that weren't walking around 30 years ago, and you need not only some help, but I'm not talking about help from FEMA, I'm not talking about help from the government. There are some moments in your life you say, I need help from God. Yes. Okay? God, I cannot do it. And that is not a sign of weakness, that's a sign of strength. We have to realize and admit our vulnerability and say, Lord, I need your help. The church has messed up because sometimes the church has helped us to be anything but real. It's made us be a phony. How you doing today? Blessed and highly favored. Is that what your kids would say? If they told us what you was talking in the car before you got here. You gotta be honest. Instead, how you doing today? I'm ready to go off on somebody. Okay, I almost smacked my husband. Okay, I almost sent this text message that got more curse words in it than a gangster rap West Coast song. Okay, this lady was right on my bumper behind me. I was getting ready to hit the brakes and get out the car and then beat the brakes off her. I'm so stressed. I feel like I need to go to the liquor store and get a bottle of Henny. I am crazy. I'm getting ready to go off right now. Because when you are honest, God says, I can do something with your honesty, but I can't do anything with your dishonesty. I cannot do anything when you act like you have it together. That's like going to the hospital and they're asking you what's wrong and you say nothing. They're going to be like, well, get on out of here, because this is a place for people who need support, and the church is not a place for people who have it all together. The church is a place for people who can lift their hands and open up their mouths and say, Lord, I need you. I don't know what's coming up this week, but it's in you I live, it's in you I move, it's in you I have my being. If I don't get you in my life, I don't know if I'm going to make it to Tuesday, but you are the air that I breathe, and I need you. Open up your mouth and say, Jesus, I need you.
Jesus, I need
you. I need you. I need you. Okay. So, the Bible says that he speaks to Abraham, and he says to Abraham, in verse number 1, he says, after these things, God tested Abraham. Okay? And let me help you know something. Tests are going to happen whether you want them to happen or not. But when God tests you, he's trying to get you to see these 4 points. But let me go back a little bit and point this out. God provides strengths and we have our weaknesses. But let me let you know something. Oftentimes in the Bible, you will see that people did not fail in their areas of weakness. They actually failed in their areas of strength. You're looking at me like, you lying. No, got some backup for you. The Bible says that Moses was the most humble man that ever walked the face of the earth. He was humble, okay? Didn't want no problems, kind of cool, calm, and collected. This was an area of strength for him. But the Bible says when he got frustrated, God told him to speak to the rock. But did he speak to the rock? No, he hit the rock. So in other words, he fell in his biggest area of humility. That's it. I got another example for you. The Bible says that David, finish it if you know it, he was a man after what? God's own heart. You know what that means? That means David kept it real. That means David had integrity. And what's the definition that we use for integrity? Integrity is doing the right thing, what? When nobody's looking. But the Bible says that David, all the men, I'll tell you what the Bible says. The Bible says David sent all the men off to war, and he on his rooftop, and he see a naked lady. And he said, you know what? I want that lady. And when nobody was looking, what did he do to the lady's husband? Murked him, killed him. Sorry, let me speak straight up. He killed him. Sorry. North side of Minneapolis comes out sometimes. You can't hold it back. He killed that brother. In other words, when nobody else was looking, he did the wrong thing. So people, not only, we often can fall in our areas of strength because, watch me, we overestimate our own strength. I do it all the time. Every Sunday night, I tell myself I'm going to finish the last of my schoolwork. I'm going to say after I finish preaching, I'm going to take a nap, and I'm going to finish my schoolwork on Sunday night, even though it's due on Sunday night. And every now and then, I'm telling you, it's due at 11:59. You know what I'm talking about. If you ever get classes and stuff, you know what I'm talking about. And I say, I'm going to take a nap, and I'm going to get up at 8, and I'm going to finish all my homework. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it don't. I hope none of my professors are watching this. Because when it don't work, every now and then what I do is, okay, this is a free tip if you want to be irresponsible like I did. I sometimes send the wrong assignment on time. Because I didn't have enough time to finish. And then by the time she emailed me, oh, you sent the wrong assignment. I'm like, oh, good, well, I'm done now. I sent it Tuesday. That's free. And then when you go to college and review, that's free, okay? Unethical. It's free, okay? I know some of y'all are like, ooh, I should be taking notes on this, not the message. But that's because I underestimate my own abilities. I think that I can do it all. And I can't do it all. Watch me, but I can't do it all well. You can do everything, but you can't do everything well. So, let me move. Test reveals 4 things about us. Number 1, it reveals what our idols are. I'm not going to be able to break it down today, but I'll break it down on Wednesday. Number 1, what our idols are. Number 2, where our heart is. Number 3, where we place God. And this one is key. And number 4, what our priorities are. Again, test reveals 4 things. What our idols are, where our heart is, where we place God, and what our priorities are. Here's the second point. Watch it. God never asks you or us to sacrifice something that you're not attached to. Watch it. The Bible says in verse number 2, he says, God speaks to Abraham, and he says, Abraham, here's what I want you to do. Take your son. Somebody track with me. He says, take your son, but he don't stop right there. He says, what? Take your only son, Isaac. Now watch him. Isaac was not his only son. he actually had another son. Anybody know his name? Ishmael. And if you know anything about Ishmael, Ishmael was a child he had, for lack of better terms, with his side chick. Okay? God told Abraham, and see, y'all think this stuff is new by the hip-hop and Stevie and all that. This stuff been going on for a long time. The Bible says God spoke to Abraham and Sarah, and he said, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. And they said, amen, I believe it. But here's what happened. God took longer than they thought he should take. So they said, okay, Lord, well, we're going to help you. Okay, light the candles, put on the Luther, okay, get one of these ladies out here, okay, and lay them down, all right, and we're going to help God out, okay? We're gonna get down with the get down because God is taking too long, and I've been getting down with Sarah and ain't nothing happening. So I'm going to insert my plan into his plan. And guess what? It didn't work. Because it never works. Because God is the master author. And you and I have to be careful to say, Lord, I'm going to leave the pen in your hand. Because you are more capable of writing my story than I am. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but there have been some times in my life when God told me I was going to get something. And if I'm honest, I said, Lord, well, you took too long to do it. So I'm going to help you out. And guess what? When I look back and see what my help was, guess what? It was really a hindrance. It really delayed my own process because God's going to do exactly what he said. So he says, take your son, your only son, Isaac. And then he says something else. He says, whom you love. And go to the land of Moriah and offer him as a burnt offering there. What am I saying here? God doesn't want what you don't attribute value to. Right? Anybody, you ever go through your closet and you see all this stuff that you could give to the Salvation Army? In Minneapolis, we used to call it the DAV. Anybody know what I'm talking about, right? You ever go through your closet and you get all these clothes, some of them got holes in them, some of them too small, some of them just got a button missing, and you be like, this is, I'm not going to wear this and I'm not going to give it away. So you bring it to the Salvation Army, Goodwill. Somebody waving me, y'all have done that before, right? Now let me ask you this. How many of y'all have done those same things with those items that you deem worthless and you try to sell? Okay? If you didn't try to do that, you a scammer. Get up out of this church right now. I'm joking. But the truth of the matter is, if it doesn't have value to you, come on, Tasha, what makes you think somebody else is going to deem it to have value? And God says, it's the same way with me. I don't want your seconds. I want your best. I don't want the leftovers. I want the best that you have to offer. Because who do you give the best to? To whom you deem is worthy. Okay? Let me tell you something. You know that he loved you when the food is good. And you ask for the last bite, which you should never do. And he gives it to you anyway. Do you hear what I'm saying? You know that he cares for you. When he asked you if you wanted an order of wings, and you said no, and then he get home, and he got his wings, and he eating his wings that you said no to, and you said, oh, can I have that last piece? And he said yes, because he's saying, you know what? I value this because this is good, but guess what I value more than this? I value you. Somebody should text him right now, baby, I love you. Thank you so much. I should have just had my own order. But because I didn't. In other words, God is saying, I want you to give me something that matters to you. 2 Samuel, I don't have the time to get into it now, but I'll get into it Tuesday. 2 Samuel, chapter number 24, verse number 24, David says, I dare not offer God a sacrifice that cost me nothing. He says, I would never disrespect God by trying to give him something that I don't even value. Okay? I would dare not say, God, you know what, take this, and I don't even deem that it has worth. Let me move because I only got 11 minutes left. Here's the next note. Sacrifice is an act of worship. Sacrifice is an act of worship. How do we know that? The Bible says, so Abraham rose up early in the morning. Now watch me. God tells him he's getting ready to sacrifice his son. In verse number 3, Abraham rose up in the middle of the morning? No. At noontime? No. The Bible says he rose up what? Early in the morning. Let me tell you something. This brother rose up early in the morning to do something that he did not want to do. Okay? Watch me. Write this down if you're taking notes. Abraham's commitment to God was more powerful than his confusion of God. Let me say it again. Abraham's commitment to God was more powerful than his confusion of God. Right? Because, first of all, he told him what I want you to do. He said, I want you to take your favorite son and I want you to sacrifice this brother. Okay? Put him on the altar. Okay? And just in case you are unclear, I want him to be a burnt offering. Okay? Okay? Put him on the fire. I want him crispy. Okay? Wesley Snipes style. Do you hear what I'm saying? Okay? White man can't jump. Jungle Fever. What's another one? Trading Places? No. I'm out. Anyways, but the Bible says that he wants to burn him up. Now, mind you, Abraham is an old man. He's not a young man. And he loved Isaac. So, how do you think he feels? Do you think he wants to do what God told him to do? Honestly, no. No. Do you think he was excited about doing what God told him to do? No. But the Bible says that he rose up early anyway. Because he said, God, I'm committed to doing your will. Even when I don't understand what you're doing. I'm committed to following you. Even when here's what I love about Abraham. God asked Abraham to do something tough, which he's going to ask us all to do. If you haven't had that point in your relationship with God, I'm telling you it's coming. Where God's going to ask you to say no to something you want to say yes to. God's going to ask you to deny something that you think will be good for you. God has a way of doing it. Sometimes he'll offer you a job where you got all this money, but you get the money, but you lose everything else. You lose your relationships. You lose your connections. Come on, somebody. You lose your peace of mind. You can't even rest at night. Okay? You off the clock and you still getting calls. And you're like, wait a second, this money ain't worth it. Right? Because you sacrifice something and it's too much. But here's what I love about Abraham. God tells him to do something he don't want to do, but he proceeds to do it anyway. And at no point, watch me, does he question God's character. At no point does he say, God, you bogus. At no point do he say, God, you are crazy. Even though God asked him to do something difficult, he still believes that even though what he doesn't feel in the moment is goodness, he still believes God is good. He still believes that even if I don't get what I want to get, then God will still be good. I got 7 minutes so I can move. Sacrifice is an act of worship. And this is one that I'll get more into Tuesday. I got a lot to do Tuesday. But worship is an act of faith. And how do we know worship is an act of faith? Here's what the Bible says. The Bible says in verse number 5, what does it say? Then Abraham said to the young man, stay here with the donkey, and I with the boy will go over and worship. And what will we do? We will come back to you. I can't wait to get into this Tuesday, but can I give you a preview? Somebody say yeah. Yeah. Thank you. In Hebrews chapter number 11, verse number 19, the Bible says that Abraham believed that even if he had to burn up his son, that God was going to resurrect him up again. Are you willing to give God what you want because you believe he'll give it back to you? Or better yet, are you willing to give God what you want because you believe he'll give you something better? Do you have belief in God like that? Okay? God says, if you give me something, I'll give you something better. Anybody just did your taxes recently? Right? You give them all this information. And hopefully you give it up because you hope you're going to get a refund. You hope, okay? Some of y'all, listen, you be mad for the whole year when you owe, okay? You don't tip at the restaurant no more, okay? You be seeing homeless people on the street. You be like, they took my refund. I don't got no money for you, okay? You be mad the whole year because your refund's going. I got 5 minutes, so let me move. 2 kinds of sacrifices that God gives. Commanded sacrifice, and this is what this commanded means. It's going to happen. It's gonna happen. Okay? And a couple of examples that I gave here is, I don't remember all of them, but I remember two of them. Ezekiel chapter 24, Ezekiel was a prophet. And God told the prophet, your wife is going to die. There's nothing the prophet can do. God told him it's going to happen, and you're just going to have to deal with it because your response is going to give me glory. The way you react to this is going to give me glory. Then Hosea chapter 3, interesting story in the Bible. I don't have time to go through it all, but God spoke to the man of God, and he said, man of God, I want you to go out and marry a woman from the red light district. Okay? I want you to marry a sidewalk hostess. Okay? I want you to marry a prostitute. Do you hear what I'm telling you? What the Bible says? He said, "You're my man, right? You my prophet, right? Go out and marry a prostitute." Because God was trying to show the man of God. He was giving a picture to Israel what they were like. He was saying, Hosea is a faithful husband, and I want you to be with an unfaithful wife, because this is what I've done to you, Israel. I've been a faithful God your whole time, and you've turned your back on me, and I want you to continue to love her and be faithful to her, regardless of her behavior. The Bible says she sleeps with all these other men, and the prophet has to remain married to her, because God is trying to show you this is what I've done for my people. No matter how unfaithful that they've been, I've been faithful to them. So this is a commanded sacrifice. It's going to happen anyway. And a willful sacrifice means you got a part to play. You have a part to play. I'm just going to do one because my time is moving. In 1 Samuel chapter number 1, Hannah says, Lord, if you give me a baby, I'll give it back to you. And blah, blah, blah. I got 3 minutes, so I got to move. Last slide here. Three, y'all like that? Blah, blah, blah. 3 types of sacrifices, okay, that God gives. Can't break it down today either because I don't have enough time. But you've got momentary sacrifice, and that means something that's going to happen one time, okay? One time. I'm going to tell you one time, okay? And this is an example in Genesis chapter number 22. And then we've got seasonal sacrifices. In other words, there are moments in your life when God will ask you to give up something for a period of time. He's saying, I ain't asking you to give it up for your whole life, but sometimes you'll sacrifice something for a period of time that will cause you to bring God glory and be able to advance his kingdom. And then the next thing is a sacrifice is a lifetime sacrifice. And this is a sacrifice that God asks you to make permanently. Okay? Permanently. And some of y'all are like, I like the first 2. This last one, I don't know. Don't even say, when you pray, don't even say that. Don't even say, I don't want that last one. Because you mess around and pray and say, I don't want the last one. And guess what you end up getting? The last one. The exact one that you didn't want. Okay? Because that's how God works. Worship. Here's my last point. Worship is always rewarded. Verse number 9. Let's read it. When they came to the place which God had told him, Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order to bind Isaac his son and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham, here am I. That angel said, do not lay hold of the boy. Do not do anything, because now I know you fear God. This word know here is yada, which means experiential knowledge. Okay? That's the Hebrew word there, yada, which means that I know based on the experience. And how many of us can testify of the goodness of God because we've had to go through some mess? How many of us have been in some messy situations and we can testify that God is faithful because I was in a worse situation and God got me out? Okay? Some of us, honestly, okay, I'll speak for myself because I ain't trying to call nobody else. There are some things, okay, that if I had been caught doing them, I don't know what the prison is in Dane County. I don't know what, but I would be here right now. Matter of fact, if my professor see this video about my assignment, I might be going, and Pastor Gina's preaching next Sunday, okay? Y'all come to the jail like they did for Joe Clark at the end to lead on me, okay? Bring Sam's, okay? Sing Fairy Side, okay? Just go all in, okay? Here's my point, because my time is up. The Bible says that in verse number 13, Abraham lifted up his eyes, and behold, there behind him was a ram caught in the thickets. In other words, God was asking Abraham, to sacrifice his son. And right before he gave up to God what he asked God for, God said, I just wanted to see if you were willing to trust me even when you can't trace me. I wanted to see if you were willing to follow me even when you didn't feel what I was saying to you. And at that moment, God says, now that I know it, I will reward you, because worship is always rewarded. I don't have time to go to the verse because I got 5 seconds, but there's a verse that God says, I will reward everything that you sacrifice.